So I've been playing around with the Firestarter, and for those of you, my fellow mech warriors who have inherited a Firestarter or have one in your lance, what do you think about playing this mech? Because certainly we have our favorite mechs, and if I have a decent amount of battle value and you've played 2 or 3 games of Battletech with me, you know, look, Warhammer's probably going to show up, a Griffin's probably going to show up, Longbow is probably going to show up, maybe an Archer, Battlemaster, Stalker, an awesome mech, 100%. We all have our favorite mechs in there. And then there's certain mechs which are just intriguing or interesting, or you want to be challenged with because they fulfill something so focused. And the Firestarter is one of them, and I'm playing it more. So I need a little bit of feedback here. I need a little bit of direction as a mech commander from my mech warriors literally on the field. How would you employ this mech? So my first question in this podcast, can you get away with playing just one Firestarter? Let's look at this idea. One of my favorite lists, and we talked about this, I believe, last week or the week before. It's certainly up there in the archive on the blog, and you can find it. One of my lists, I'm trying to think of a tactical or an elegant way to say this. I'm just going to say it. It spams out long-range missiles. That's it, right? It's just a spammy type list on there. So to do that, I need redundancy. I need certain things in place. If I just take one LRM carrier to get some long-range missile support, because I want to keep it on the lower battle value on there, is that really going to work? It's one LRM. It can't be everywhere. I have to hit you. There's movement modifiers, not to mention if you take me out, now I have nothing. So sometimes when we have something that's very, very specialized, we need that redundancy. And that was a separate Wargaming Tactics podcast that I put up on my blog. You could download that in the archive too. So because the Firestarter is so specialized, do I need that redundancy? I'm kind of 50-50, right? Some games it's worked fabulously. In other games, I'm like, yeah, I needed the redundancy. Second question, learning to play the role of it. I find the Firestarter, or I have found the Firestarter in the beginning when I was playing it, to be extremely deceptive because it has a decent amount of armor and it has a decent amount of weapons for the battle value and for the weight class. You're almost fooled into thinking it's a medium type mech. You're almost like momentarily fooled. And I found myself, there's a fine line between being aggressive and pushing that aggression in a good way versus not knowing your battle value role. So I found myself going up against light mechs with some support and doing fairly well. And because of that lack of experience in earlier games, equating that with, well, look, I went up against medium mechs with some support. I did pretty well. I'll just go up against a heavy mech. Recent game, I went up against a Crusader. And the Crusader's like, is that Firestarter running towards us? Like, what? Okay, just ignore it because it's not going to engage. It's getting closer and closer. I shoot some pop guns at the Crusader, and it's like, okay, you got my attention. It turns and just like blasts me on that. So these specialized mechs, in those situations where they do really well, I feel like as we become more comfortable with them, we need to realize they do really well in the specialization of what you're trying to leverage. That is not cross-functional across the entire game. The last piece, using it to burn stuff, using it to inflict stuff, I've never really done that. I burnt one forest down, but what I found was, and this is where I'm thinking about that, and this is where I'd like to get the feedback. When I'm burning forests or targets or buildings to create chaos, I found using it proactively, is that the term I'm looking for? Well, essentially, you're on your side of the board, I'm on my side of the board. I found if I was going to run up with the Firestarter to start burning stuff to get cover or deny you cover so the rest of my lands could pummel you, because I was moving forward and you were so I'm moving my Firestarter forward, you're moving your mechs forward into the midfield table, you got there pretty fast and suddenly I'm eating a lot of guns. The times where it worked better for a scorched earth policy was when I was actually pulling back or tactically withdrawing or moving to some area that I knew the battle was then going to flow. An example, right? Firestarter moves to the left side of the table. The rest of my lance moves to the right side of the table. Firestarter starts burning down stuff on the left side of the table, and then now joins my lance on the right side of the table. So I'm castled up on the right side. What this means is now, as my opponent's lance comes in, or tanks or infantry, whatever it's going to be, because we've scorched earth the left side of the board, that narrows down the approaches to where I'm castled up, that they can get cover. If there's woods ahead of me, if there's woods to the left, my opponent could decide. Two ways of coming in to get cover. If I take away at least one of them, I've narrowed down their choices. I can put up a better defense. That kind of passive defensiveness, I find, works well for the battle value. Your thoughts on this kind of really unique and specialized mech, and certainly if you come of age and you were to inherit a Firestarter, I think you could do worse. Look, we all want to get the Battlemaster, the Marauder, or the Warhammer. Someone's got to get the light mech in the family. Someone's got to get the Locust, right? You're not the elder brother. Firestarter, you could do some interesting stuff with. Your thoughts, your feedback, your comments down below under this podcast. Fritz needs that direction. What should I be looking at? I'm getting ready to spring the Firestarter trap. I want to keep that going. More Battletech stuff on the way. I am on fire with Battletech. I'm having a blast playing Battletech. Don't get me started. I will convert you to play this awesome game.